Additional to such risk, if allowed to transpire full scale and without our timeless intervention or our timeless mitigating solutions, the impact of AMD would have spelled adverse implications for Gauteng's general socio-economic standing. In 2011, we directed the Trans-Caledon Tunnel Authority to effect specific remedies as an emergency works project for AMD mitigation in the Witwatersrand. This initial project, which has come to fruition, was an interim remedy until a permanent and sustainable solution could be conceptualized, researched, and developed. In this regard, a detailed study over the course of 2012 up to 2013 considered the emergency works and recommended convergence of that project into a long-term solution capable of reclaiming AMD and treating it to standards fit for beneficial socio-economic use. Excellent progress has been made to date on the implementation of the short-term intervention across the 3 basins within the Witwatersrand area. The first one, which is the Western Basin in the area of Krugersdorp, and I dare say this is an area where I come from, born and bred and still residing there. The existing rand uranium was successfully upgraded to increase the treatment capacity sufficiently so as to stop uncontrolled decant of AMD since August 2012, thereby improving the water quality in the Tuelopi Spruit. Further upgrades to the plant are being implemented to further increase the treatment capacity to 50 megaliters per day. And lastly, part of the further upgrade already completed was the construction of a new pump station to increase the pumping capacity to the environmental critical level. The works are being executed in partnership with Sibanye Gold, who have since acquired rand uranium. The second area is the Central Basin, which is the Germiston area. A new high-density sludge water treatment plant was successfully constructed in the Central Basin. The plant has been in operation since December 2014 and is currently treating 82 megaliters per day, sufficient to draw down the water level to protect the underground water resources and maintain the environmental control level. The works have been executed in partnership with CRG Mining Company, who also donated pumps to the value of 30 million rands towards the project. CRG has an interest in underground mining, which in turn is dependent on the drawdown of the basin. Our TCTA also entered into partnership agreements with DRD Gold to co-dispose the AMD sludge on their tailings dam and to use free of charge DRD property for the construction of the water treatment plant. TCTA is currently in the process of appointing an operator on a short-term contract to undertake the operation and maintenance of the plant. Approximately 50% of the works will be performed by a black-owned company to promote broad-based capacity within this sector. The third area, which is the Eastern Basin area, the area around Springs here in Ekurhuleni. Construction of a new high-density sludge plant in the Eastern Basin is nearing completion and the commissioning of the plant has commenced. The Eastern Basin plant of approximately 110 megaliters per day is the largest of the 3 plants and one of the largest of its kind in the world. In the procurement of an operator for the plant, similarly to the Central Basin, TCTA will further pursue the objective of building broad-based capacity in the sector, as well as ensuring that the sharing of knowledge and skills, particularly from those who have been historically disadvantaged. What are the benefits of our initial intervention? We are proud to say that our interventions in dealing with AMD have yielded a number of direct benefits to the people of South Africa as follows. Prevention of environmental catastrophe. If we had not intervened the way we did, the flow of AMD into the larger environment, including the natural river system, would have caused widespread environmental pollution through the release of various hazardous metals. Put simply, Our concerted efforts have prevented the uncontrolled decant of toxic AMD into the natural environment. The second area is on protection of underground water resources. Through our ongoing program of pumping and treating AMD, we have managed to protect valuable groundwater resources from being contaminated by toxic AMD. Over the years, we have also succeeded in preventing the rise of AMD above the determined environmental critical level. The third one is on the contributions to socio-economic development. Side by side with the critical environmental safeguards that we have achieved, our AMD interventions have also brought about important gains in the socio-economic development of the communities around the western, central, as well as the eastern basins. These projects have witnessed significant small enterprise development, preferential procurement and skills development among historical disadvantaged groups, as well as job creation, reaching about 1,000 jobs at the peak of construction on the treatment plants. And the fourth one, which is the last, is on building state capacity to deal with acid mine drainage. In directing one of our own state-owned entities, TCTA, to implement this initial phase of the AMD program in the Witwatersrand, government has made a positive move in establishing the requisite knowledge node and capacity to deal with similar legacy issues related to AMD across South Africa. We have now decided to move beyond that initial phase into undertaking a long-term and permanent solution to the AMD challenge. A solution that promises simultaneously to augment the water supply to the nation's economic hub of Gauteng region. As I speak now, the short-term intervention has been successfully completed and will now be seamlessly integrated into a sustainable long-term solution. This planned intervention will therefore turn the AMD problem into a long-term sustainable solution by producing fully treated water that will significantly increase water supply to the Vaal River system and defer the need for further costly augmentation beyond phase 2 of the Lesotho Highlands Water Project for at least another 30 years. The pinnacle of this approach is that a polluted resource once considered with contempt now becomes a commodity contributing to securitization of the availability of water resources in the Vaal River system, a key driver for continued sustenance and promotion of socio-economic development. The initiative on increased water supply will further provide an opportunity for water allocation reform towards more equitable water use among sectors. This approach of water reuse entrenches the principles enshrined in our sector policies and strategies. And this becomes even more pertinent considering the challenge of climatic change, which has triggered drought conditions across most of South Africa. I've consciously considered the success of our interventions today, and we are pleased to extend the TCTA's scope of work by directing TCTA to implement the long-term solution. With the TCTA's experience in the AMD Emergency Works Project, we are confident that TCTA has the capacity to successfully execute the long-term solution. TCTA will accelerate the implementation of this project with the following key milestones. Firstly, the ministerial directive in May 2016, in this current month of May. And secondly, the environmental impact assessment would be completed by June 2017. And the third area is on the beginning of construction by January 2018, followed by commissioning in November 2019, and finally the starting of operations in February 2020. We wish TCTA well in implementing this strategic assignment that targets a national imperative, but also that gives certainty for future economic investment and growth of this economic hub of our country, Gauteng. On project funding, the combined cost of the emergency works and long-term solution projects is currently estimated to the range between 10 to 12 billion rands. This is indeed a significant investment, and it is important to ensure fairness in the allocation of the costs. To this end, the funding model is based on equitable allocation to us, government, the mining sector, and the water users. The mining sector is the contributor to AMD and should carry some share in the costs without unnecessarily overburdening the sector and threatening jobs. In recognizing the benefits to the country from mining, government has decided that the fiscus should shoulder some of the costs. Whilst we recognize that water users bear the burden of the environmental impacts and degradation of the water resources, we also note that this initiative to turn the problem into an opportunity defers future augmentation and benefits water users. It is fair, therefore, that some of the costs be included in water use charges without placing the water users in a much more worse off financial position than they would be if nothing was done. With the support of our National Treasury, we have decided to cap the contributions of the water users to the cost of dealing with the problem to a mere 33% of the project cost. The intention by this government is to recover the balance of 67% from the mines through the proposed environmental levy. In the interim, however, prior to the implementation of the policy and associated consultations, government will cover the anticipated recoveries from the mining sector. Going forward, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, our department will augment its role as the custodian of water through the formalization of a policy position paper on mine water and AMD management. This policy that sets out 9 principles that strive to strengthen the protection of water resources will be gazetted for public comment in due course. Parallel measures with the department's research arm, the Water Research Commission, to explore new and emerging technologies are underway to maximize our efforts in managing AMD, particularly from the Strategic Water Partnership Network and the mining industry are also underway. Whilst our department is making dedicated efforts to manage AMD proactively, other mining areas where AMD impacts may manifest are also being monitored. Government appreciates that mining is a cornerstone of our economy and promotes its development, but the role of the mining sector in ensuring optimized water resource management will not be allowed to fall behind. Our department has convincingly demonstrated the inroads it has made to deal with AMD. Our efforts to date are a testimony to our commitment to deal decisively with the challenge. We wish TCTA well, we celebrate the intervention, but most importantly, we're quite excited that we can reassure the people of Gauteng, business in Gauteng, potential investors, and the whole country at large that government, once it is committed to addressing the challenges of the past, it also seeks to find opportunities in those challenges without putting a blame on any individual. However, we hope that those that are now involved in the mining sector will adhere to the rules of the game so that then there is no perpetual contamination of this precious resource that we all are quite in need of. And as I move off the podium, I want to thank the Director General, together with her team, TCTA in particular, who have actually steered the ship. It is quite exciting, Executive Mayor Kungubele, that this is happening in Ekurhuleni. Again, one of the priority areas of promoting industrialization in South Africa. Let's hope, therefore, that there will be many other economic opportunities and new industries that will emerge out of this particular program, so that then we grow the economy, we create more job opportunities, we skill more South Africans. Because again, in the quest of making sure that we have the capacity as the state, there has to be also a transfer of skills to those that are now at tertiary studying and intending to come and participate in this sector. We need to open up opportunities for them, and we need to also protect the knowledge that is emerging out of our own local solutions to deal with acid mine drainage. Thank you, Nyabo.
Thank you very much, Minister. And as the Minister takes a seat, I am going to open up for questions to the media, questions to be asked to Minister. And as per usual, can I ask you to please indicate if you have a question? When you do, please introduce yourself, indicate which media house you are representing, and then you can put your question to the Minister. I will take the questions in batches of 4 to allow Minister to respond adequately to those questions. And let me do it in, by way of streams so that everybody feel that they had an equal opportunity. So I'm going to start with the area to my left. Are there any hands to the left so that I can acknowledge you and you can put your question? Could I see, please? There are 2 that I see. Yes? 2. Yes, there's one there and then the colleague to the left. Okay. Please put your question.
Hi. Good afternoon to the Minister, everybody that's here. My name's Kavil Singh. I'm from News 24. I'd just like to find out, how is the ratio for the cost determination, how is that decided, the 66% and the 33%?
Thank you very much.
Hi, Teresa Taylor from ENCA. I just wanted to check the water, is it going to be cleaned to drinking water standards? And how much more water are we anticipating that this is going to add into the system?
Thank you. I'll take one other one from the center. Yes, ma'am. Sorry, just use the microphone or?
My name is Elise. I'm from Beeld, Netwerk 24. I want to ask the Minister, how much does it cost per month to keep these machines running?
Thank you very much. Let's start with those 3. If I can allow Minister then, if the microphone can go to Minister there, so that she can... You'd like Minister to come to the podium. Minister, they would rather like you to come to the podium, please.
Thanks for the questions. How was the ratio determined? Amongst other things that we thought of, together with our colleagues from finance, was that we need not overburden the end user, but we should seek to see this as an investment that in the long run will give us returns. And in that regard, the ratio of the 67% and the 33% was arrived at so that then it can also be affordable for the other role players to make a contribution. Because part of what has always been an issue was on the cost to the end user. This is not going to be a cost that goes to households and so forth. It will be going to other sectors, and in this instance, it will be predominantly the mining sector. We know that there are companies, should I mention companies that have shown interest? Let me not do that. Yes, that have already shown, so you have to buy me a chocolate for that, that have shown keenness to to be part of the acquisition of water, but also in return, use this as a source and be in a position to pay in line with our current pricing strategy that then commits us to not exceed 33%. So that is what has been agreed upon, and I'm sure Margaret and James can also elaborate further. Yes, this water can be cleaned up to potable use, up to an extent where you can drink. And for now, what we are really focusing on is to clean it up until it can also be acquired by industry, and when necessary going into the future. And because it is also going into the Vaal River system, yes, it must be to an extent where once it gets into the Vaal River system, because it also has a process of cleaning and bringing it up to a consumption level, we can assure you that at the end of the day, it will become part of the resource that Gauteng can be in a position to use both for domestic use as well as for industrial use. The cost per month, I'm sure the gentleman here can actually share with you on the operational costs, which I think part of what one has been appealing for is that initially there was an outcry about acid mine drainage and its negative impact. Now that we are dealing with it, all the cost factors are taking into consideration the future of our country with regard to water security. We also are making an intervention in terms of investing in new technology and new solutions to ensure, therefore, that we are able to ensure that this particular economic hub of South Africa does have water, and we save from the augmentation, because had we not invested on the AMD, we would have then had to invest on dealing with augmentation of water security in South Africa. So the resources, the funds that were going to be used for further augmentation are the very funds that have now been redirected. Right? Yeah, are the ones that have been now redirected to deal with AMD, so that then we turn a problem into a solution. But I would invite James there's no free lunch. I would invite James to speak more on the issues of the costs and as well as the ratio of the 33 and 67% as agreed with National Treasury.
Thank you, Minister. I think the Minister is now a specialist on AMD. All these questions, we've taken them. I think we have probably just one clarity issues. Minister, in terms of the cost for the 3 basins, it's 25 million a month that we're dealing with. The 33/30 ratio is based on the cost that it would have taken the state to put this water at a potable level. But the third is also looked at in terms of contribution from the mines. I can't remember what was the other question.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me take another round of questions. The lady in the back. Are there any on my right-hand side? Are there any? Yes, at the back there. So let's take your question.
Thank you very much. I wish to laud the Minister for this intervention. We have laboured, we've lobbied, we've been involved in activism and whistleblowing for decades, and this time has finally arrived. I may perhaps be permitted, if I may, to ask 4 brief questions. First of all, acid mine drainage was a known phenomenon in the mining sector since 1903. So I respectfully ask, why only now have we embarked upon this laudable objective of desalination? My second question is with the apportionment of liabilities. We do believe that it is inequitable that only the last men standing, this is the mining industry as well as the public who had no share in the polluting of the river systems, that they should be held solely responsible or liable. and we wish to ask your position statement regarding the retrospective application of the polluter pays principle. Both the NEMA and the National Water Act makes provision for previous mine owners and shareholders to carry responsibility. And since the Council of Geoscience has a complete and comprehensive database of mines that existed and their owners, the third question is, I just wish to ask the policy statement of your department regarding mines that have insufficient financial provision and therefore declare bankruptcy or liquidation or business rescue, and therefore externalize the cost for pumping and treatment to neighboring mines, to communities, to financially beleaguered municipalities, and to future generations. And my last question is, a respectful appeal, even I beg of you, if it is possible, to put on the Department of Water and Sanitation's website the water quality results of the water that will flow into the Elsburgspruit from the Central Basin, into the Blesbokspruit from the Eastern Basin, and into the Tweeloopie-spruit from the Western Basin, and also to put on a public website the incidences reports and also the audit reports, because that certainly will support the transparency and the openness that we have witnessed within your department.
Thank you very much. Can I have the last question at the back?
Yes, Dumole Mohlaudi from SABC News. I just wanted to a bit of clarity from Minister on the issue of job creation and skills transfer. As the other projects go online, you mentioned a figure in terms of the amount of jobs that have been created. Are we likely to see those being increased? And also, the ones that are being created, are they long-term sustainable jobs? Just on clarity there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's the last question on this side.
Good afternoon. It's Kevin Crowley here from Bloomberg News. Just wanted to clarify on the cost and the funding. How much will the National Treasury itself contribute to this? And secondly, the 67% of the cost to be recovered from the mines. Have you had any feedback from the mining industry on this? How do they feel about it? Thanks.
Thank you very much, Minister.
Why now? Surely we should also be asking those who were there before 1994. For me, that would be the response. Precisely because we are a caring government and we are worried about the future of our country, we had to look at different options. It has not been an easy thing to deal with. We had to put policies in place. We had to do a lot of research so that our intervention is knowledge-driven. And I think part of what this government has demonstrated with dealing with AMD is our intention to really promote reconciliation in our country. Because we know that there are many who are absent, but possibly there are those who could have been followed, and we deal with this issue. And hence now our regulatory environment has to be tightened such that the polluter pay principle is actually implemented. Our monitoring capacity should actually be much more stronger, and adherence to the norms and standards become important. These are some of the things that we are now going into the future dealing with. And I would really want South Africans to appreciate that there's never been this kind of a program in South Africa. There's never been this kind of a solution. Therefore, some of the issues that people might want to get answers from us on, work with us, and in the course of implementation, we'll find answers. And I really wish to thank the lady from the environmental groupings, communities, who has been a whistleblower. I hope you'll now blow the whistle that really government has put these resources in the interest of South Africans, in the interest of the environment, to deal with the challenges and what we have inherited. I'm going to invite James to come and deal with the portion of on liabilities and so forth. Putting information on our website, we normally do, and I'm sure through TCTA and its own programs, they will be in a position also to provide information. But what is also good about our department, we have what we call the Strategic Water Partnership Network that involves different sectors who always come and interact, share information, and also are able to find solutions working together. And I'm sure this is not a difficult thing that we can deal with, but it will have to be done periodically in line with the periods where you do the testing, when you do the assessment, so that then everybody can understand what exactly is happening. On jobs, I've said almost 1,000 jobs, and of course, this is a highly technical kind of work that is taking place here. And of course, during construction, you are able to create short-term job opportunities. And in the operations and management, that's where then you'll need professionals and those that have got expertise in this matter. Sometimes it becomes very wrong to assume that if we talk of $1 billion worth kind of a project, then it must have millions of jobs. It is about the nature of the project and the nature of functionality that contributes onto the cost of the project and so on and so forth. But there will be other side opportunities that are going to emerge in this particular process through new industries that are going to come to being in Gauteng, and there is also going to be an opportunity for those who are still studying to be absorbed in the system and be given exposure in this regard. Treasury and ourselves have agreed on a contribution of 600 million per annum. And this is our own contribution as the state in the interest of economic growth and protecting the environment in South Africa. This is what we have committed ourselves to. I think those are the questions, and then I'll invite James to talk about the portion of liabilities and the polluter pay principle and so forth. But nothing is going to be applied retrospectively. And in many instances, that's not what we have been able to do. Again, showing the goodness of this ruling government, this ruling party. We're not on a witch hunt. We're on a journey to build our country. And I think it will take good men and women to appreciate that. Sometimes we may want to be hard and say, let's apply it retrospective. We will not be able to find others. And those who will actually declare themselves insolvent or not being able to trade. Again, there are other departments that are looking at those issues. Our collaboration with the Department of Minerals and Mineral Resources does help also to deal with the verification and validation of the status of the players in the industry. My humble appeal, let South Africa celebrate that we have found our own homemade, homegrown solution to deal with the legacy of the past, and we're dealing with it as a solution for the future. I think if we could hold it there, including our environmentalists, surely it will show that indeed we are in a country that is really forward-looking with a positive attitude. Thanks.
Thank you, Minister. The Minister has given us a task because the point that is being raised is a policy point. And as we are implementing the program, we are also researching the best way in which we can deal with this matter. And it will be dealt with in the most collaborative way because the Minister's guidance is not to be punitive in a process. And that is why even the goodwill on starting the project where the state has taken equity shows that goodwill. And I think, Minister, by the time we have the data back to you, we'll be able to pronounce on that.
The big news is Newsroom.
We also stream live on YouTube.
Whether you're at home, at the office, or at the gym, wherever you are, Newsroom is right there with you. Bringing you all the latest news, updates, sports, weather, and everything in between. Get all the latest news you need on the go via live streaming on our YouTube channel. That's Newsroom, weekdays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News Channel.
How does this extreme heat affect basic conditions of living?
Food spoils more readily, and the risk of food poisoning outbreaks or food poisoning in a household.
Should we experience another heat wave soon, and it's coming?
First sign is always thirst. Thirst is a sign that already your body started to be dehydrated, and that's a very early sign that most people will be able to sort of pay attention to and then act on. That doesn't warrant any serious medical attention. But the minute that you start to feel slightly nauseous, that you start to feel dizzy, that's a sign that you need to stop what you're doing, get out of the sun, get into a cool area, slow down your intensity, get hydrated, cool down.
Join Dr. Sello Mutawung every Saturday from 9 till 10 in the morning.
News Today keeps you informed with news locally and around the world.
When Judge John Hlophe challenged the Supreme Court of Appeal when it sent the matter back and said that there must be an inquiry set up.
We unpack business news.
There's an increase in general inflation in the country.
We give you up-to-date news of the day.
The drugs were seized at several locations in Sydney, including a shipping container sent from Hong Kong. Police say it's the largest haul of illicit drugs in 2 years.
We round up sports news.
Kotata, tell me about the legacy that you would like to build and be remembered for.
Trying to get my foundation running, which is going to focus on, all the sport, doesn't matter disability or able body. So, I'm passionate about sports.
Stay informed every Monday to Friday from 3 to 5:30 p.m. CAT. SABC News.
In Africa, technology has created many new ways of doing things.
ICT is an increasingly important part of everybody's life.
It's being used in education, for social media, and now for farming too.
The best thing about internet for a farmer is that you get to share information.
On Network, we give you all the important African technology and social media